We're going for a half hour. Hello, I'm Dr. David Rosensweet. Welcome to you where I Wonder Doctor Live, to all around the world and all the ships at sea. Each time on this Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock, I want to begin by sharing with you very often a clinical pearl. We used to call them in medical school. In fact, our professors said to us, carry around this little book, and every time you hear something that could be practical to you in the future, write it down. Here is my book from medical school, and it looks pretty faded there. But the one I want to talk to you about is something that I discovered for myself years ago. I've had intermittent esophageal reflux, heartburn. That means the contents of my stomach is not being stopped by the sphincter there above it, and the acid contents can come up and regurgitate into my esophagus, otherwise known as GERD. Millions of people have it, as you can tell by the TV ads for the acid blockers. And one remedy that I instituted many years ago is it usually comes in episodes, and I'll start feeling sore and heartburn. And what I do is I do an ancient technique called elevating the head of my bed. In fact, I'd like to demonstrate for you. Let's pretend that these are 2x4s, and there's 4 of them, because when they're lying flat, that adds up to a total of 6 inches, which is the ideal amount to elevate the head of the bed. And that's what I do. And I'll elevate it for a week or 2 or even a month. And what happens there is nighttime's a very vulnerable time, because during the day I would do pretty fine. I could have a mild heartburn, but when you lay flat, that stomach contents has a much easier time of creeping up into the esophagus and burning you. So what do? At night we rely on gravity, and down comes the stomach, holds on to its contents just by gravity, elevating the head of the bed. It's a great technique for any of you with GERD, and don't eat too late, as many of you have already found out. Now, interestingly enough, I took my bed down quite a while ago, not having difficulty with this, and I was browsing through some information. What I learned was that people are using this elevation of the head of the bed. Well, the ancient Egyptians did it. When they went into the Egyptian tombs, they saw this odd thing where the head of the Egyptian beds that were in the tombs were elevated 6 inches. They didn't use 4 2x4s, but they were elevated 6 inches. That was the magic amount. And what I've learned is there are people who snore, or people who have sleep apnea, or there are people who have varicose veins, or even migraines, that if they do this for a month or 2, these symptoms, these issues disappear. Oh, the science behind it is fascinating, but I'm not going to take you there today. Elevate that head of the bed. And like anything else, these techniques work for some people and they don't work for all people, but they're worth an experiment. So that's what I'd like to say about the pearl for today on this Thursday afternoon. And now I'd like to answer some of the questions that have come in from you. And here's one from Carolyn. Hi, sir. I was told I have cirrhosis of the liver due to hepatitis C stage 4. That I have 1 to 2 years to live. I can't find a, quote, caring, end quote, doctor. What can I do to combat fatigue and depression? Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Carolyn. Well, I have quite a bit of experience with hepatitis C. And, the most common thing is you hear the gravity of the diagnosis and the prognosis. And what I'd like to say is, number one, and this is for everybody, there isn't a single diagnosis that's ever occurred to the human race that someone or a lot of people haven't reversed. That's not the ones you hear about. But there is a book out there called Remarkable Cures, in which a lot of people contributed to the amazing illness that they have cured. And there are what I would call functional medicine doctors or holistic medical doctors who have taken on the project of hepatitis C, and I can't promise anything. Yeah, it's a strong one, as you yourself know better than anybody, Carolyn. But there are people who have reversed hepatitis C, And they do so by rather fancy programs, and very often these doctors who've gone in to reach out for more tools, there's a lot of caring ones of them. I hang out with them all the time. I go to the conference with these doctors. So I would recommend that you go to a website called the Institute of Functional Medicine, or ACAM, or that's ACAM, or the numeral 4M, A4M. They list doctors who have taken on these special interests, and if you pump in your zip code, you're going to a list of doctors that practice this type, and you're looking for doctors who are very proficient in IV therapies, among other things. And so that's where I would start, Carolyn. See if you can identify a doctor that could surprise you. They could take this on, or they could make the remaining journey of your time on Earth easier for you. Or, who knows, like I say, there hasn't been a single diagnosis that has occurred to a human being that someone or a lot of folks haven't rolled the whole thing back. So, best to you there, Carolyn. And here is a question from Hazel. Hi, Dr. R. Hi, Hazel. Help me to understand why I need fiber. And when you send in these questions, I'd love to know where you're from, a little bit about you. It's not necessary, but this question itself is substantial enough. Well, human beings, we love to move our bowels. Let me start there. I mean, there's even religions where there's a prayer of gratitude that the devout say after every bowel movement. In fact, I myself, frequently enough, give out a prayer of gratitude, of thanks upon the moving of the bowels, because it's such a crucial function, and daily at least. And, well, human beings in many parts of the world, they do not have any trouble with this at all. It's a very rare person. And where are these people? These people who don't have any trouble with bowel movements, they're having a daily or more bowel movement. They also don't have colon cancer. That's an outrageous thing to discover. Well, this has been studied very carefully by, for one thing, an Australian doctor who went to visit these pockets of the world where these people have bowel movements. What's happening to them? It looks to me like it has two major components to it: diet and very physical lifestyles. You've always heard of surgeons wanting to get people up after they have an operation and get them walking, even though they may not be comfortable enough to do that. Why do they want to do that? Well, one of the things they want to make sure that happens is that people do not get constipated, because that's really rough after a surgery. So get moving is one thing. And then the other thing about these people in these various parts of the world who move their bowels so easily and so voluminously, and they've weighed the poop, and it's many times the volume of American poop, for example. What are they eating? They're eating a fiber-rich diet. They're eating things that grow out of the ground, and these people are digging up roots, and they're eating a lot of vegetables. So, because these are the foods that are super rich in fiber, the vegetables. And when you think about it, look at a piece of celery. I mean, sometimes you can actually see the fibers. Well, that's not the fiber I'm talking about. The fiber I'm talking about is microscopic. But think vegetables, eat vegetables. Fiber helps the bowels move. It's one of the big ones. Oh, and we do love our bowel movements. I won't go into the smell of the bowel movements, which is another special human pleasure. I'm going to stay away from that. And here's a question from Judy. Dr. R, help me to understand. What about delaying breakfast until 10:30 a.m. and eating more then, and then only supper? I'm just not hungry early in the morning. I do have a smoothie with whey powder early on. That's W-H-E-Y. Thank you in advance. Hi, Judy. This is a very interesting topic, because subjects wave their way into popularity and prominence in the holistic medical world, in the medical world, and then sometimes they wave out. Well, this is related to a topic that's been waving in and out, and it's on a rising wave. And when you're searching out information these days, and at the conferences that I attend, this is given center stage, and the subject is Well, intermittent fasting. And that's really what you're describing there. You're saying, and I'm going to go further. I'm going to say that there's a body of knowledge that suggests, and I myself am right onto it, because when I read about the details of it, I thought, this is what I want to do, especially with what I'm wanting to deal with for my own self. And what intermittent fasting is you confine the number of hours that you eat during a day, and you make sure that it's at least 12 hours from the last time you eat until the next time you eat. So if you go to bed at 9:30 at night, if you're eating breakfast at 10:30, you've done 13 hours there. If that's the first thing you eat, though I'm not quite clear, you might be eating a smoothie. And what I'm suggesting is, this is yet another thing that is so worth for all of us to try. There's very specific medical reasons what happens when your body is at rest, not dealing with digestion and food, which takes a lot of energy and a lot of internal mechanics to deal with it. It's really fascinating how much it takes for you to eat a meal. That's why your mother said, don't go swimming after a meal, because the blood is rushed to your intestine tract, not available to the muscles, you can get a cramp. So I'm definitely a proponent of this, and we're about to learn how important is fasting. Well, human beings have been talking about fasting and all kinds of fasting for centuries. In fact, it's one of the go-to methods when someone is really sick. I mean, what happens when you're sick? Do you feel like eating? No. But pure fasting, that's a whole other subject. But partial fasting, this 12-hour fast minimum, no food, for 12 hours, no matter where you want to put it in your awake and sleep cycle, I like what I'm seeing, I like what I'm reading, and I like it so much, I'm doing it myself these days. And I've spoken to some of the experts and listened to them about the evidence they're bringing forth, so I like what you're doing there. And we were taught, well, you should, there's all kinds of things, and this is where individuality comes in, because some people, they need to wake up in the morning and they need to eat. And other people, they're not hungry. And I'm one of them, actually. And so why eat then? Some people say eat your breakfast like a king or queen, your lunch like a prince or princess, and your dinner like a pauper. No political, I know that's not rather PC, but at any rate, I don't want to go into those subjects. What this also points out to me is there's all kinds of ideas floating around in how you're going to improve your health, how you're going to get well, how you're going to sustain a healthy lifestyle forever. And you can find stuff that says you better eat 8 meals a day. That's out there. And other stuff that says you better eat 2 meals a day. And the key to the highway here, the core principle that I find so important, is each individual has got to go through a process of discovery to find out what suits them best and which improves their health best. And what I can tell you is, you get an idea and it sounds beneficial, try it out. Because you'll get feedback if it's not. Your energy won't be as good, your mood won't be as good. And not necessarily during the first phases when your body's doing a readjustment. But give yourself a little bit of time and do these kind of things. Follow that intuition. Follow what your body's saying. I'm hearing, Judy, that your body's saying something to you. You're saying, I'm curious about delaying breakfast until 10:30 in the morning. So I say, that's an experiment worth doing. You tune into your own body and you follow the bouncing ball. And you'll find out whether it's good for you. Great question. And here's a question from Helen. All the meds, side effects, like metformin, etc., was put on a med for diabetics and it caused swelling. Then was given another for the swelling and it caused numbness. I stopped taking them both. I am type 2. Helen, I'm looking a little bit for what the question is in there. And one of the questions, seems like there's a couple in there, is I like metformin. My preferred approach is we have in a whole series on diabetes, and I Wonder Doctor gives you many options, including primarily a diet and how you respond to stress and nutritional supplements, because if you're in the early stages of insulin resistance, and of course you're not, you're all the way to diabetes type 2, someone told you that, you want to do all these things because there's many people who have backed themselves out of diabetes type 2. There's people who even needed insulin that have backed themselves out of diabetes type 2. There it is again. There isn't a diagnosis out there that in the world of diabetes that hundreds and thousands of people have backed themselves out of that diagnosis by finding out what the right things to do and doing them. And when it comes to the time to reduce insulin resistance, and it really is time to do that, like your blood glucose is too high or hemoglobin A1C is too high, I definitely prescribe metformin from time to time. And yet, just because I like metformin as pharmaceutical medications go, and there certainly is a place for them, just because I like it doesn't mean everyone that I give it to is going to be able to tolerate it. Well, I trust that kind of stuff because I prescribed over the course of my career many pharmaceutical medications. And although I had the idea that was a good idea, I'm waiting for the feedback from the patient. And if you're having things like swelling, well, that would be an example of, hey, metformin may not be for me. Well, how can I deal with the same things that metformin helps with? And I suggest that you go to the diabetes section in I Wonder Doctor and also into the store because we list supplements that can assist you with metformin, with insulin resistance, because that's what metformin is directed at. It gets tricky. This isn't the approach that I love, that when a medication causes swelling, for example, well, sometimes you accept some of the challenges that medications do. They're strong and they can have, quote, side effects. But a lot of times I go, hey, swelling, I'm not going to address that with a second medication. I'm going to use swelling as, hey, maybe metformin isn't the ideal pharmaceutical medication to use on you, Helen. Now, as we turn towards medications for diabetes, my goodness, there's a lot to choose from. So that would be, rather than doing, I see that you chose to stop taking both, fair enough. But if you have a doctor that you like and you trust, hey, they've got a tool bag that goes beyond metformin and reducing the swelling. And, I'm certainly not a doctor for all people, but what there is there's a doctor that each one of you out there could find and trust and link up with. And there's all kinds of health professionals that can help you with diabetes, including a tremendous amount of information online. Oh my God. And so, yeah, sometimes you might want to go, if you're not totally aligned with the philosophy and how it's going with one health professional, you might want to go into another. But if you like your doctor and trust your doctor, well, they have other tools for diabetes, that is for sure. I love these questions. They pertain to so many different aspects of medicine. It looks like it's focused in on diabetes, but it relates to many other things that come up for the patients I've seen over the course of my life. Here's a question from Jerry. What's the most important vitamin for men? Well, I like to start, as far as vitamins go, with a good multiple vitamin and mineral. And there's a zillion of them out there. And so the word good in my world is defined by the quality of and caring of the manufacturer of that supplement. And that's hard for the public to know. It took me years to work my way through the maze of supplements that are out there, even when I began. Now there's just a zillion supplements from a zillion manufacturers. Well, the good news is there's a whole lot of manufacturers that are very excellent. They're choosing high quality basic products to put into their multivitamins, and they know how to package them, they know how to encapsulate them, they know how to put them in pills. They're the top of the line. It's like anything else out there that you buy. And at the other end of the spectrum, there's things that look like a multiple vitamin and have some words on there that make you think they're a multivitamin and you're getting what you want, but the dosages are off, and most important, the quality's off. How do you find this stuff? Oh man, I place a high premium on this stuff. Well, this stuff is being sold by professionals because the supplement companies know they have to charge higher prices for quality stuff. You can sell junk for very cheap prices, but I do not recommend it. Yeah, and what you do is you find the best companies, and who has this? Your nutritionists, your holistic-oriented medical doctors, osteopaths, naturopathic doctors, acupuncturists, chiropractors, any one of these medical professionals who have taken a special interest in nutritional supplements. You get it from them. An option is go to our website, because I have been interested in the quality of nutritional supplements, because I've given myself a handful of these every single day, more than multiples, and you want to get the quality. So we have a quality combination for men that 1 packet a day, man, there's some good stuff in there. And otherwise, your own personal health professional that's taken interest in nutritional supplementation is going to have a good one for you. I like to go beyond the multiple, but again, it's a quality issue, Jerry, and you've asked me about the most important vitamin for men. It begins with a multivitamin and mineral. I'm going to give you a couple more. It's a good antioxidant combination and a good omega-3, so a decent combination is a great base camp for any man to take, primarily based on the quality. And here's a question from AH. With probiotics, can you overdo a good thing? Can you take too much? Probiotics. Big topic there. And what these are is our intestinal tract. Many of you may know this and many of you may not. We have a residential community in our intestinal tract called 3.5 pounds on average of bacteria. And they are beneficial. And we need them, and a lot of them a lot of this colonization begins during a vaginal birth, which means a cesarean birth. You want to attend to the intestinal tract of a baby born cesarean and get their make sure that they get their intestinal flora. But yeah, that's when we pick them up. That's when they begin. We get colonized. We look like we're this human being, right? But we're not. We're this human being plus 3.5 pounds. Trillions of bacteria that are beneficial. When people think of bacteria, they think, well, they're germs. Well, not these friends. They're so necessary for our health. And when this general population gets disturbed by being knocked out, for example, or knocked down, as can happen by inappropriate use of antibiotics, way too much, way too often, it'll kill those bacteria. Oh man, that has to be restored. And any functional medicine doctor, a holistic medical doctor, as they're trying to nurse someone back to health, that's going to be one of the first things they're going to focus on, is that the health of that bacterial population in that intestinal tract. And that's what probiotics are. They are actual living bacteria. And the question, AH's question is, can you overdo a good thing? Can you take too much? I'm guessing there's an origin to that question, that maybe you took a certain amount of probiotics and you got diarrhea or something like that. That's why you might be asking the question. But it's hard to take too many probiotics, because how many pills is any one person going to want to take a day? And you don't have to take that many. In the world of probiotics and restoring the health of that bacterial population, quality, once again, is the queen and king of what's going to help you. And if you get these quality probiotics, they've got billions of organisms per capsule. And the manufacturers, they know how to nurture these little critters. They know how to encapsulate them properly. They know how to deliver to them so that they can become live when you swallow them. And so again, name of the game with probiotics is quality. And then how many of them do you have to take? Well, there's people that I take a daily probiotic just because this has been a subject of great interest for me every year. And it's a capsule that's about 3/4 of an inch tall and about 1/4 of an inch wide. It's an oval, and it's a substantial one, and it's got billions and billions of organisms in there. But I know, the main thing I know about that is what company manufactures that. Because you learn, and that's what I did over the course of my career, is investigate who are these people who are manufacturing that? How much do they care about it? How big of an organization do they have? How much attention are they paying to details in the latest science? And so that's the deal. Get a probiotic of quality. then how can you take, why would you take so much? You don't have to take probiotics. I mean, there are people, some patients of mine, where we really had an intestinal project that we demonstrated needed to be done, that I would give them more aggressively. I'd give them a good sized probiotic 2, 3, 4 times a day, often between meals. And I'd also make sure that the diet that they were on contained the proper stuff that encourages the growth of healthy bacteria, which is a healthy diet. So we've talked in many other locations about what I consider to be a healthy diet. If you're eating a healthy diet, you're giving the bacteria what they need to eat, because they do eat. That's how they stay alive. And then there's the unhealthy bacteria that can also be in someone's intestinal tract, and what do they thrive on? The stuff that's not good for us. Sugars, for example. People who are eating a lot of sugars can often have an overgrowth in their bacteria of yeast, in their stomach, in their intestine, and in their colon, that the unbeneficial bacteria overgrow, or yeasts overgrow. And one of the problems is what you're feeding them. So if you're a heavy sugar eater or soda pop drinker that are so sweet, or a heavy sweet eater, this is going to give you a problem in your intestinal tract with your native, they're a beloved part of us. Ooh, do I love my intestinal bacteria. Treasure them. I know what the job they're doing for me. And if you're eating an unbeneficial diet, you're feeding the bacteria that are not beneficial for us, that cause us trouble. So moral of the story, eat a reasonable amount of probiotics. If you're getting loose stools, as sometimes can happen, no big deal, back it down a little bit. If you can zero that down to it is excessive probiotics, let your intestine be your guide. So, let's see. This is from Angela. Hi, Angela. I think I know which Angela you are. And Angela says, I have a question. Is ginseng really as good for you as people say? Or is that all wishful thinking? Well, it raises a bigger topic for me, is how good can anything be for you? Are there magical herbs and magical plants and magical things out there, substances that can really be magical? Well, there are, but where I like to see is really what's at the foundation of your health restoration. What's your nutrition like? What's your exercise like? What's your nutritional supplements like? And are you exposed to toxicity, and are you detoxifying? And how are you doing with emotions and the stress in your life? Those are the core things. And I hold ginseng and many other things like it to be, hey, this could be helpful to some people. And of course, ginseng, you chose one of the most common ones that have been promoted throughout human history. There is a ginseng-loving population out there that's been around for centuries and millennia, and this doesn't happen accidentally. Why these things appear, like ginseng, or ginger, or there's just so many different things, so many different plants and herbs, is because along the course of human history, someone found that if they started eating ginseng regularly, they started feeling better. And so much so that this has been studied, and naturopathic physicians and herbalists are so knowledgeable about this. They know some of the benefits. Let's just take the mental benefits, the mental alertness benefits of ginseng. This is definitely popular. But what I like to do is approach it like this. Angela, you had a question about ginseng. Somehow, somewhere into your mind came the word ginseng came, and you're asking a question about it. I like to follow those intuitions. I suggest that came to you for a reason, and is definitely worth an experiment. And so finding ginseng of high quality, again, if you're doing ginseng supplements, you want to find the high quality companies, and there are companies that really are really know their ginseng, and really, to name a name, Wise Woman Herbals is a good herbal company that's doing quality herbs. And then there's fresh ginseng, and my goodness, in just north of us in Florida, there's these southern states where ginseng's growing wild, like Kentucky and Tennessee, and there's people, oh my God, they hold this to be one of their life's missions, is to find wild ginseng and use wild ginseng. So again, ginseng's a world, it's a universe, and if you got the intuition to try it out. See how it is for you. I like ginseng, and I think it's going to benefit a lot of people. So bravo that you've landed on this possibility. Check it out for yourself. Well, our time is up for today. It's, there's one question that came in live here, and I want to answer it. It's from Mrs. Frizzell, and she's asking the question, so I'm going to take the extra time today. This just came in live, probably from Facebook. Is there a relationship between emotional health and gut health? Oh my God, great question, Angela. There's a relationship between emotional health and everything. And I mean, we look like we have this physical body, and we've got a mind, and we've got emotions, but the interesting thing is everything is so interlinked that there isn't anything that happens on one level, let's say physical body, that isn't simultaneously on every single level of our being. Our mind, our spirit, our soul, our emotions, our body. So that's just in general. That's one of the reasons I love this question. And not only that, there's a relationship between emotional health and gut health. In fact, we were talking about this earlier, that some people can get a disturbance in their 3.5 pounds, their trillions of bacterial cells that live in our intestinal tract, all up and down it, mostly up and down it. And my God, these disturbances can be caused, I mentioned dietary disturbance. If you give these bacteria the wrong food, they don't do well. And if you give them, like I said, sugar, the ones that do eat sugar that are not beneficial, they do well, they thrive, and the whole nature of the population changes. Well, this can also relate to the emotions. It does so in so many ways. And you can get disturbances in that gut population from not dealing with your emotions in a very skillful way. We place such a high premium of this that we've devoted quite a series of I Wonder Doctor to how do you gain skills in dealing with your own emotions, really the emotional response you have from stress, external stress, and the rising up of internal stored feelings that seem to come out of the blue. Where did that come from? And I mean, it can start with something as mechanical as someone who is having a fight or flight response to the stress in their life, i.e., not a great emotional, not a terrifically beneficial emotional response. They're getting all bent out of shape emotionally to the stress in your life. Well, this is a lifelong skill that we want to develop. How skillfully do we develop with work with stresses and uncomfortable emotions? And it is a body of knowledge, and it is a skills, and that's the great news. You can acquire that information, those tools, and get support in that, and all of a sudden, a life that had a lot of suffering in it can change to a life that's got a lot of peace in it, and a lot of happiness, and a lot of ability to stay in the moment and enjoy life. Back to the gut. One of the hallmarks of the fight or flight responses is the outpouring of stomach acid. Yeah, I don't know why. You can explain why people get these rushes of adrenaline, but we do know it happens, and it's why people who have excessive amount of stress often get stomach ulcers, for example, or duodenal ulcers. Too much acid at the wrong time when there's not food in there to digest. And if you keep doing that day after day, you change the nature of what makes it to the intestinal tract. And you get acidity changes that can disturb our intestinal flora, our resident bacterial population. So I'm giving you one example of what can happen to disturb the population and develop bacterial strains that don't belong in there and are not beneficial for us. Now, I'd like to give you the flip side of that. Your brain, your mind, your emotions can be affected by your intestinal tract. The link between the intestine and the brain is phenomenal. Who would have guessed? How could there be such a connection? How can the intestinal tract, your gut, and your gut bacteria affect your brain? Well, it is super well known. The science is there. The work being done with an extreme situation like reversing, I am saying reversing Alzheimer's disease. There's a whole series of focus. When you're reversing Alzheimer's, you're dealing with a lot of different causes. And one of them is the gut. Now, how in the heck could that happen? How could your gut and your gut bacteria affect your emotions? Well, the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone, folks. Angela Frizzell, you opened up a big question here, but your own emotional health can affect your gut, and your own gut can affect your emotions and your mind. Big story. Thanks for asking, and hello to you, Angela. We're always appreciative of participating with you, Angela. Well, time is out for our live time today. Time is up for our live time today. And I want to leave you with something I said earlier, that if any of you are tuning in because you have significant health challenges and diagnoses that are frightening you, are really just taking up all the air in your mind, your emotions, your life, your day-to-day living, or anyone who have minor diagnosis, I want to reiterate to you a surprise to some of you, that there hasn't been one single diagnosis. That means one single illness that throughout human history, and especially now as well, that some individual, groups of individuals, hundreds, thousands of people haven't reversed, backed it out, backed it down, back into health. Do you hear about these? Are our newspaper or our news media loaded with these stories? They're not. But if you go to hang out in the world where these stories are being told, and they are available, I mentioned a book to you earlier, Remarkable Recovery is the name of that book. Well, these stories abound, and of course I've heard it from patients, and I've met patients that I thought, oh my God, they've come within an inch of their life with one of the worst diagnoses I've ever could think of dealing with, that they're back in health. So I want to say to you as we part today, and hope to see you next week, that there isn't a diagnosis out there that someone, or a lot of folks, haven't found their way back to health with, they haven't healed. So good to be with you as always. I look forward to being with you again. Let us hear from you. We love your questions, and we love to know where you're from, stuff about you. So soon we hope to institute ability to talk to you live during this live I Wonder Doctor sessions. So, to your health.